Hello and welcome to the Amherst Weekly Report with Amherst Media. I'm Asia Reed.
And I'm Olivia Capriati.
When digging in the dirt outside of a UMass fraternity, you're most likely to find an empty bottle or a red Solo cup. Geology professor at Mount Holyoke, Mark McMenamin, discovered the upper arm of a dinosaur bone at the edge of the frat's volleyball court. The professor's wife, Diana, found the 200-million-year-old fossil because they were searching for rocks to put in their ornamental garden. At first, it appeared to be a palm-sized rock, but a month later, while Mark was splitting wood, the rock fell from a nearby pile. The stone glistened in the sun, catching the professor's eye. It was then that he used his geology instincts to examine the rock. He placed the specimen under a scanning electron microscope and an energy spectrometer. From these tools, he gathered that his rock was indeed a cortical bone from a dinosaur's elbow. Over 100 years ago, a Mount Holyoke paleontologist found similar fossils. This leads experts to believe that the boulders in the region were dropped in place over 16,000 years ago.
State Senator Sonia Chang Diaz was able to raise nearly $173,000 this past January for fundraising, beating out the other Democratic candidates. A former public school teacher, Chang Diaz was the first Latina to be elected for Massachusetts State Senate in 2008. Sonia is known for her work in pushing for fair taxation, affordable housing, reliable and green public transportation, and protections for immigrants. She was able to gain support from more than 660 contributors for the fundraising process, with 46% of them being first-time donors. In December of 2021, she was able to raise more than $116,000, which doubled fundraising initiatives from November. According to her campaign at the time, it said that most of the donations in December came in increments of $100 or less.
Peace builder and educator Dr. Paula Green has died at the age of 84 on February 21st. Paula dedicated decades of her life towards international works of peace. In the 80s, Paula worked as a psychologist but was drawn to peace building. After living in Asia in the 90s, she was inspired to build the Karuna Center for Peace Building located in Amherst. The purpose of the center was to create an organization that had international outreach to help bring people together, end violent conflicts, and restore friendly relations. Several interventions were successfully held at the Karuna Center, some which included post-conflict areas such as Israel and Palestine, and Myanmar and Burma. In 1995, Paula launched Contact, or Conflict Transformation Across Cultures, to train those interested in also being a peace builder. The Contact program was also successfully recreated in areas outside the U.S., from Africa to South Asia to East Africa. In 2016, following the election, she began to be concerned about the divide in the United States. Paula and other Massachusetts residents joined together to create HATH, or Hands Across the Hills. They partnered with residents in eastern Kentucky to host a 3-day immersive experience despite class, social, and political differences. Her achievements earned her many awards over the years. In 2012, she received the Psychology of Peace and Justice Prize, and most recently in 2018, the Peace Building Award from the Alliance for Peace Building.
A $3 million investment was recently provided to UMass from the Manning Innovation Program, which began in 2019 through UMass Amherst alumni Paul and Diane Manning. The investment will be used to fund research projects that bridge science and business together. One project that is underway and will be funded is a treatment to help suppress inflammatory bowel disease, or IBD, to promote human health and well-being through startup companies. Residing within the College of Natural Sciences, the Institute for Applied Life Sciences is where the program will funnel most of its funding into. The program provides promotion of, quote, applied research and development efforts through both creation of startup science and engineering companies. The program will help to provide grant funding so faculty members can utilize their research for areas such as cancer and wastewater treatment, veterinary science, and reproductive health care.
Both local and regional Tibetans have boycotted watching the Beijing Olympic Games and chose to instead focus their attention on human rights violations. Tandup Sring, Belchertown resident and member of the 17th Tibetan Parliament in North America, encourages Americans to stand in unity with those who disagree with China's actions. Tandup hopes that this will send a message to China that their sinister plan is a violation of human rights. China is unfolding a cultural genocide for Tibetans while simultaneously attempting to replace their Tibetan identity with a Chinese identity. A rally was held on February 6 in Boston, with Tandup being one of the participants. Taiwanese, Hong Kong, and Uyghur groups will be attending the rally to support a free Tibet. The Boston rally is one of the elements of No Beijing 2022, a movement that supports those experiencing human rights abuse in China. NoBeijing2022.org is also a website created by activists that provides videos, books, films, music, and more that have information regarding human rights in China. The purpose is to also lobby lawmakers to stand up against human rights violations.
The Amherst Regional School District may use federal funds to stabilize budget assessments for the towns of Amherst, Leverett, Pelham, and Shutesbury. During a meeting, Superintendent Michael Morris proposed, along with District Finance Chief Douglas Slater, that a portion of the elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds could be applied to next year's assessments. These funds would come from the Federal CARES COVID Relief Act. They would prevent any of the assessments from rising or falling over 4% while supporting a $33.17 million spending plan for the middle school, high school, and Summit Academy. This would act as a guardrail system that ensures that the assessments don't increase or decrease too quickly. If the plan is put into effect, Amherst's assessment would rise by 2.5% to $17.17 million, while the three other towns would see their combined assets drop. There would be an overall increase from this year's $20.76 million to $21.16 million.
A settlement is in the works between Hadley and a town resident who had planned to buy and renovate the North Hadley Village Hall. Last week, the Hadley Select Board and Finance Committee both voted to transfer $35,000 from the reserved fund as part of the terms of the settlement agreement decided upon in the Hampshire Superior Court case. The case was filed by Peter Hieronymus, whose $70,000 winning bid had initially been chosen in 2019 to buy the 1864 Village Hall building and adjacent ball fields. However, the Select Board later ended negotiations with him in March of 2021. In the lawsuit, Hieronymus argued that the deal was binding, claiming that town officials used the interest to lift a protection on the hall's ball field. He also said he had to sign onto historic preservation and land development agreements that were not a part of the initial proposal. Hieronymus had planned to turn the upper floor of the building into 3 apartments, while the lower level became a community and concert space. The Select Board voted last May to accept an $80,000 bid from 2 other parties to acquire the building, but Town Administrator Caroline Brennan said all sides are continuing to work towards a solution.
The Massachusetts Asian American Pacific Islanders Commission recently inaugurated 2 UMass Amherst professors. Leo Wong, an assistant academic dean for the College of Natural Sciences, was appointed by State Auditor Suzanne Bump, and Richard Chu, a history professor, was appointed by State Treasurer Deborah Goldberg. They are each set to serve 3-year terms on the commission, which meets each month with the goal to, quote, recognize and highlight the vital contributions of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders to the social, cultural, economic, and political life of the Commonwealth. As members of the AAPI, Chu and Wong both wish to celebrate their community and to spread awareness about the Stop Asian American and Pacific Islander hate movement.
Thank you for tuning in to the Amherst Weekly Report with Amherst Media. I'm Asia Reed.
And I'm Olivia Capriotti, and we'll see you again at the same time next week.